The transport ship docked at Terminus 7 station with a soft hiss. Captain stood at the viewport, watching the massive military academy complex stretch across the artificial horizon. Behind him, 8 human cadets gathered their equipment with nervous energy. They were the first humans to attend the Galactic Coalition Military Academy, and everyone knew it. Cadet adjusted his uniform for the third time. He was 23 years old and had been top of his class at Earth's sole military institute. That meant nothing here. Beside him, Cadet secured her engineering toolkit with steady hands. She never showed nervousness, but could see her jaw was tight. The docking bay opened, and they stepped into a world that made Earth's finest facilities look ancient. The walls gleamed with technology humans were still struggling to understand. Alien cadets moved through the corridors with confident ease. Some were twice human height, their armored skin reflecting the station's bright lights. Others moved with fluid grace that seemed to defy physics. Captain led his group through the main corridor. Every alien they passed stopped to stare. Some pointed. A few laughed. The humans kept their eyes forward and their backs straight. The orientation hall was enormous. Thousands of cadets from 12 different species filled the seats. The humans were directed to the back corner, where the oldest and most worn seats waited. Caught the eye of a cadet as they walked past. The alien was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and crystalline armor plates covering his body. His mouth parts moved in what might have been a smile, but his eyes held only contempt. Commander took the stage. He was decorated with medals that signified victories in battles humans had only read about. His voice boomed through the hall without amplification. "Welcome to the finest military academy in the known galaxy," he began. "For 500 years, we have trained the Coalition's greatest warriors. You represent the peak of your species, the elite, the strongest and your worlds can offer." His eyes swept across the hall and stopped on the human section. "Most of you," he added. The hall erupted in laughter. Cadet Wu's fists clenched. He was the largest human in the group, but next to the aliens around them, he looked like a child. Beside him, Cadet placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Not yet," she whispered. The first week was designed to establish baselines. Physical tests came first. The humans ran the obstacle course while alien cadets watched from the stands. The course was built for beings twice their size with 3 times their strength. Made it halfway before his muscles gave out. Wu, despite his size and strength by human standards, couldn't lift the standard weight that cadets handled with ease. Hands were too small to properly grip the climbing holds designed for alien appendages. The scoreboards updated in real time. Humans ranked last in every category, dead last. During the break, overheard a group of cadets talking. They were sleek and fast, built for speed and precision. One of them gestured toward the human group. "I heard they needed 3 tries just to join the coalition," they said, her translator rendering her clicking language into perfect galactic common. "Their planet is barely developed. They still use chemical propulsion for some of their spacecraft." "Why were they even accepted?" another asked. "Politics," the first one replied. "The council felt sorry for them, but look at them. They can barely complete the basic course. They'll be gone within a month." Cadet Jin, who had been sitting nearby, said nothing. He was the quietest of the human group, preferring to watch and listen. He filed away every word. The academic tests were no better. The humans studied species and technologies they never encountered. The cadets, with their enhanced mental processing, finished complex calculations in seconds, stared at problems that would take him hours to solve. In the tactical simulation room, things got worse. The exercise was simple: assault a fortified position with a standard unit. They did it with overwhelming force, breaking through walls. They used speed, striking from 3 directions simultaneously. They employed advanced technology that disabled defenses remotely. The humans tried a frontal assault. They failed. They tried a flanking maneuver. They failed. By the third attempt, the observing instructors weren't even watching anymore. Commander reviewed the results in the evening briefing. He pulled up the human scores on the main display. "Let me be clear," he said to the assembled instructors and senior cadets. "Standards exist for a reason. The battlefield has no mercy for weakness. Perhaps humanity would be better served in support roles, supply chain management, administrative functions. Not everyone is meant to be a warrior." The human cadets sat in their cramped quarters that night. The rooms had been built for a species that was smaller and needed less space than even humans. Their equipment was old, their uniforms were recycled from previous classes, and their training schedule gave them the worst time slots when facilities were most crowded. 3 weeks, Wu said quietly. 3 weeks of this and we haven't won anything, haven't even placed in the middle of the pack. "We're not built like them," said. She was examining a piece of training equipment that had broken during that day's exercise. "This is all designed for their biology, their advantages." "So what do we do?" asked. "Give up, go home and prove them right." Captain had been silent, sitting in the corner with a tablet. He'd been taking notes all week, watching everything. Now he looked up at his cadets. "No," he said simply, "we adapt." "Adapt how?" asked. "We can't get stronger than a, can't get faster than a, can't think quicker than a." "No," agreed, "but they all evolved on safe worlds, worlds where they were the apex species from the beginning, where warfare was honorable and structured. Earth wasn't like that." He stood up. "Everything on Earth tried to kill us. We didn't evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. We evolved to survive anyway." Cadet Myra, the medical officer, leaned forward. "You're saying we fight different." "I'm saying we fight like humans," replied, "and they've never seen that before." The next morning, another announcement appeared on the Academy's communication boards. The war games were coming. Every cadet class competed in a month-long military simulation. Teams from each species. Full combat scenarios. The winners received honors and first choice of assignments upon graduation. The announcement listed all participating species and their historical performance. Had won 12 of the last 20 games, had won 5, had won 3. Humans had never participated before. In the mess hall, alien cadets gathered to read the announcement. When they saw humans were entering, the laughter started again. "Give them the worst starting position," one said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Make it sporting. See if they last 48 hours." Axe, the elite cadet who'd watched the humans struggle all week, turned to his team. "We won't even need to eliminate them," he said confidently. "They'll eliminate themselves." In the back of the hall, the 8 human cadets stood together. They didn't laugh. They didn't argue. They just looked at each other with the same thought. It was time to show the galaxy what humans could really do. Captain smiled for the first time since arriving at Terminus 7. The game was about to change. The human cadets gathered in their quarters at 400 hours, a time when most alien species were still in deep rest cycles. Captain had called this meeting deliberately. He stood before a holographic display showing all 12 species in the upcoming war games. "Forget everything the Academy taught you this week," said. "They're teaching coalition doctrine, standard tactics, honorable warfare. That's not how humans fight." Looked confused. "But isn't that the point, to learn their methods?" "Their methods assume equal footing," replied. "We're not equal, not in their measurements, so we don't play their game." He pulled up historical records on the display. "Before we reached the stars, humans fought wars for 10,000 years. Wars where we didn't have the best weapons or the strongest soldiers. We won anyway. How?" Jin spoke up from the back. "We adapted. We used terrain. We used psychology. We made our enemies fight on our terms." "Exactly," said. He changed the display to show each alien species. "The fight with honor and strength, direct confrontation. They announce their attacks. They never retreat because it's shameful." He moved to the next image. "The rely on speed and coordination. They strike fast from multiple angles, but they need to rest after intense bursts. Their metabolism can't sustain long operations. Another image. They use superior technology and tactics, but they're predictable. They follow established military theory perfectly. They never deviate from proven strategies. Was already taking notes, so we find the weaknesses they don't know they have. What weaknesses do we have? Wu asked. Smiled. None that matter in the type of war we're about to fight. Humans can function on 4 hours of sleep. Most aliens here need 8 to 12. We can eat almost anything organic. They have specific dietary needs. We can endure pain and injury better than most species because Earth's environment forced us to develop high pain tolerance. And most importantly, he paused, we're the only species here that evolved as persistence hunters. His eyes widened. We don't have to be faster than them, we just have to outlast them. Over the next 2 weeks, the humans trained in secret. They used their worst time slots to their advantage because no one was watching. While alien cadets practiced traditional assaults and defenses, the humans learned something different. Jin taught them reconnaissance and stealth. He'd spent 3 years in Earth's mountain rangers, learning to move unseen through hostile territory. The others learned to mask their heat signatures, to move without sound, to become invisible in plain sight. Developed tactical plans that made the alien instructor's doctrine look rigid. Ambushes, false retreats, feints, and misdirection. He studied ancient Earth battles, Vietnam, Afghanistan, the guerrilla campaigns that defeated superior forces through unconventional means. Worked miracles with their outdated equipment. She discovered that coalition technology, while advanced, was built with certain assumptions. Nobody thought to encrypt basic communications because honorable warriors don't spy. Nobody shielded their supply lines because attacking logistics is dishonorable. She found 100 small vulnerabilities that existed because the aliens had never fought an enemy who didn't play by their rules. She also made modifications. Their old sensors couldn't match technology in raw power, but she tuned them to detect specific signatures. Armor had a unique energy pattern. Metabolism generated specific bioreadings. She turned their weakness into specialized tools. Wu studied defensive positions, but not the standard ones. He looked at terrain the aliens dismissed as useless. Narrow canyons where size was a disadvantage. Dense areas where speed couldn't be utilized. Places where human flexibility and smaller size became assets. Myra trained everyone in field medicine with minimal supplies. We won't have the medical stations the other teams will use, she said. We need to keep fighting with injuries they'd consider mission-ending. Became their intelligence specialist. She observed every alien team during their practice sessions. She noted their communication patterns, their decision-making speed, their coordination methods. She found that most species had evolved with natural telepathy or hive mind tendencies. They weren't used to communications being intercepted because it had never been possible with their biology. On the 10th day of preparation, Admiral Hen visited the human quarters. The admiral was ancient by human standards, his blue-gray skin marked with symbols of wisdom. He watched the humans practice a complex ambush scenario in the simulation room. After they finished, he approached Captain. "Interesting methods," the admiral said. "Not what we teach here." "No, sir," replied carefully. "The other instructors think you're wasting time, that your cadets are practicing because they're too proud to quit, but that you'll fail regardless." Hen's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "I think differently." "Why is that, sir?" "Because I've studied your species' history. Your planet should have killed you 1,000 times over. Predators, diseases, climate extremes, and then you started fighting each other with remarkable efficiency. Most species in the coalition never faced real existential threats. We evolved to cooperate and expand. You evolved to survive." The admiral turned to leave, then paused. "The war games are meant to simulate real combat, but for most species here, combat is theoretical, an exercise." For humans, I suspect it's memory." The Admiral left without another word. That night, the final team assignments were posted. Each species was given a starting position in the game zone, a massive simulated environment spanning hundreds of square kilometers. The received the fortress zone, high ground with defensive advantages. The got the planes, perfect for their speed. The were assigned the technology-rich sector. The humans were given Grid 13, the Badlands, rocky terrain, minimal resources, no strategic value, the position everyone considered unwinnable. The alien cadets celebrated when they saw the assignments. In the mess hall, Axe raised his drink. "A toast," he announced loudly, "to our human colleagues. May they survive long enough to learn why the Coalition has standards." The room erupted in laughter. The humans eating at their corner table said nothing, but was smiling. "What's funny?" Wu asked quietly. "They gave us exactly what we need," replied. "Terrain they think is worthless. No one will watch us there. No one will expect us to do anything from that position." "So we're actually happy about the worst assignment?" asked. Jin nodded slowly. "The best position is the one your enemy ignores." The final 3 days before the war games began, the humans barely slept. They memorized every centimeter of Grid 13. They planned supply caches. They identified routes no other species would consider usable. They programmed modified sensors. They rehearsed hand signals because verbal commands could be detected. Captain watched his team work with quiet pride. They'd entered the academy broken and humiliated. Now they moved with purpose and coordination. They'd stopped trying to be like the aliens and embraced being human. On the last night, he gathered them one final time. "Tomorrow, every species in this academy will be watching. They expect us to fail. They expect us to be eliminated in the first 2 days. Our goal isn't to meet their expectations." "What is our goal?" Myra asked. "To win," said simply. "Not to survive, not to do better than expected, to win the entire game." The room went silent, then Wu laughed. "They're going to be so angry." "They're going to be terrified," Jin corrected. "There's a difference between losing to a superior enemy and being hunted by one you didn't see coming." Pulled up their final tactical plan. It was nothing like coalition doctrine. It would break every rule of honorable warfare. It would be called cowardly and dishonorable and unfair. It would also work. The next morning, all teams loaded into their transport ships. The War Games arena was located in an isolated section of the station, sealed off and monitored by hundreds of cameras. The entire academy would watch the battles unfold in real time. As the human transport lifted off, heading toward Grid 13, the academy's communication channels buzzed with predictions. The betting pools had humans eliminated by day 2. Most instructors had already written their assessment reports, explaining why humanity wasn't ready for coalition military service. In the command center, Admiral Hen took his observation seat. He'd requisitioned a private monitor, one that could focus on the human team specifically. Something told him this war game would be worth watching very closely. The transports reached their drop zones. The countdown began. 60 seconds until the game started. All across the arena, alien cadets prepared their weapons and reviewed their strategies. In Grid 13, 8 human cadets checked their equipment one final time. They didn't look nervous. They looked like predators who just caught a scent. The countdown reached 0. The war games had begun. The first 3 days of the war games played out exactly as the aliens expected. In the fortress zone, the team established a commanding position and repelled 2 early assaults. Their strength and discipline made them immediate favorites. They dominated the plains, striking fast at any team that ventured into their territory. By day 2, they'd eliminated an entire team through sheer speed. They established a technology network that gave them perfect information about everyone's movements, at least everyone they could detect. In the Academy's main observation hall, hundreds of cadets and instructors watched the battles on massive displays. The cameras followed the action, warriors smashing through defensive lines, units moving like liquid across open ground, drones mapping the entire battlefield. "Where are the humans?" someone asked on day 1. The camera switched to grid 13. The Badlands were empty. The human was there, but the cadets were gone. Sensors showed nothing. Heat signatures showed nothing. "They probably ran," an instructor said, realized they were outmatched and went into hiding. "They'll be found eventually," Commander added. "You can't hide forever in a monitored arena." But day 1 passed, and the humans remained invisible. In reality, Jin had led the team deep into the Badlands Canyon system within the first hour. The terrain was treacherous, full of narrow passages and unstable rock, perfect for humans who were smaller and more flexible than any alien species, perfect for people who wanted to disappear. They'd split into 4 two-person teams. Jin took reconnaissance, and Wu established forward observation posts, and Myra set up their hidden base camp in a cave system the sensors couldn't penetrate. The other 2 humans, cadets named, and began setting traps along possible approach routes. "Phase 1, whispered into his comm. "Pure information gathering. We watch everything. We learn their patterns. We don't engage." For 3 days, the humans became ghosts. Jin moved through the arena like smoke, observing alien teams from positions they never thought to watch. He documented everything: when the changed shifts, how they communicated before attacks, where they positioned their sensor nodes. Intercepted communications from 6 different teams. None of them encrypted their signals. Why would they? Honorable warfare meant you didn't spy on your enemies. She learned their strategies, their supply schedules, their planned movements. Working in the hidden cave, performed her technical magic. She'd brought components that aliens considered junk. Now she was building devices that would make the next phases possible. Sensor jammers, false signal generators, things that would make the humans appear to be in 3 places at once. On day 3, something changed. A supply convoy was moving through neutral territory, heading from their base to a forward position. Standard procedure. Completely safe. Every convoy before it had made the trip without incident. This convoy never arrived. The observation hall erupted in confusion when the team reported the loss. "Impossible," the team leader transmitted. "Our route was secured. We detected no enemy forces." Cameras reviewed the footage. The convoy was there one moment, gone the next. No explosion, no battle, just disappeared. Admiral Hen leaned forward in his private booth. He switched his monitor to thermal imaging for that sector, rewinding to the convoy's last known position. There, for just a fraction of a second, he saw heat signatures that matched human biorhythms. 8 of them, positioned in a perfect ambush formation in terrain that had marked as impassable. The Admiral said nothing, he simply watched. On day 4, the team sent a patrol to investigate a reported sensor anomaly. The patrol consisted of 3 warriors, each capable of fighting 10 human soldiers in standard combat. They moved with confidence through a narrow valley, weapons ready. They never returned. Axe, commanding the team, received the last transmission. "Contact with," then silence. "Send a recovery team," he ordered. "Full strength. Whatever eliminated that patrol will crush it." 10 warriors moved into the valley. They found their missing teammates unconscious, their equipment stripped, and a message written in the dirt: "You're playing our game now." The recovery team tried to return to base, but something was wrong. Their navigation systems were giving false readings. Modifications were working perfectly. They found themselves walking in circles, wasting energy, burning through supplies. When they finally made it back to the fortress 6 hours later, they were exhausted and demoralized. On day 5, they experienced their first loss. One of their scouts simply vanished during a night patrol, then another, then a third. "They're out there," the team leader said, her voice tight with frustration. "We can't see them, but they're hunting us." "Who?" her second asked. "They are at their fortress. They are in their sector. Who's hunting us?" Neither of them said it, but both were thinking it. The humans. The observation hall was no longer laughing. Instructors were arguing about what they were seeing, or rather, what they weren't seeing. 12 teams had entered the war games. After 5 days, 2 were significantly weakened, and no one could explain why. "This is irregular," said, reviewing the data. "Attacks without engagement, losses without contact. This isn't how warfare works." "It's how human warfare works," Admiral Hen said quietly. The commander turned to look at him. "Check your human history files, Commander. There's a term they used, guerrilla warfare. Never fight fair. Never fight where the enemy expects. Always make them afraid." By day 7, the war games had changed completely. The alien teams were no longer fighting each other. They were trying to defend against an enemy they couldn't see. Supply lines were disrupted. Patrols didn't return. Equipment malfunctioned at critical moments. They built stronger fortifications. They increased their patrol frequencies. They added more sensors. None of it helped. In the cave base, the human team gathered for a brief rest. They'd been operating on 4-hour sleep cycles, rotating watches, staying constantly mobile. For them, this was normal. For the aliens, such a pace would be impossible to sustain. "Status?" asked. "Are down to 70% effectiveness," Jin reported. "They're exhausted from constant alert status. They have pulled back to defensive positions. They are burning through their drone batteries trying to find us." "And they still don't know it's us," Wu said with satisfaction. "Some of them suspect," corrected. "I'm intercepting confused communications. They can't believe humans could do this." "Good," Captain said. He'd been monitoring from the cave, coordinating their strategy. "That disbelief is a weapon. The moment they truly realize what's happening, they'll change tactics. Until then, their arrogance works for us." Myra checked her medical scanner. "Everyone's healthy. Minor bruises and cuts, but nothing serious. We're operating at full capacity." "Then we move to phase 2, said. "We've weakened them. Now we start eliminating them." On day 8, the first alien team was eliminated entirely. The team, already weakened by earlier attacks, made camp in what they thought was a secure location. They woke up to find themselves surrounded, their weapons disabled, and human cadets emerging from positions that should have been impossible to reach. The team leader looked at in disbelief. But you're supposed to be hiding in Grid 13." "Were you looking for us there?" asked. "Because we left 3 days ago." The team was marked eliminated. They'd never fired a shot. On day 9, they lost their fortress. Not through assault, the walls never came down, but had infiltrated their supply depot and contaminated their food stores with a harmless but extremely unpleasant compound. Within hours, half the team was too sick to fight. When Axe tried to call for medical support, he found his communications were being jammed. The observation hall watched in stunned silence as 8 human cadets walked into the fortress unopposed, past guards who were too ill to stop them, and planted their flag in the command center. Axe, lying weakly on the ground, looked up at this. "This is not honorable combat." "No," agreed, "it's war, and we're very good at it." By day 10, only 5 teams remained, and 2 others, and impossibly the humans. The team everyone had predicted would be eliminated first was still at full strength, while teams with superior technology and warriors were falling apart. The betting pools in the academy had collapsed. No one knew what to bet anymore. The rules had changed, and nobody understood the new game except the 8 humans who were playing it. In the command observation room, Commander stood before the tactical display, his expression unreadable. "How?" he asked Admiral Hen. "How are they doing this?" "They're fighting like humans," the Admiral replied. "You wanted them to fight like coalition warriors. They're showing you why that would be a mistake. Humans don't fight to demonstrate honor or prowess. They fight to win, by any means necessary. On day 12, the team leader sent a message on an open channel, knowing the humans would hear it. We surrender grid sectors 4 through 9. We will not enter those zones. Please, just let us know where you are. In the cave played the message for the team. Wu laughed. They're begging us to fight fair. Are we going to tell them where we are? Asked. Jin smiled slowly. We're everywhere, that's the point. Captain pulled up the tactical map. Only 3 major teams were left besides the humans, and all were weakened, confused, and afraid. The final phase begins tomorrow, said. The Academy wants a battle, so we'll give them one, but on our terms, in the place we choose. Where size doesn't matter, technology has limits, and speed means nothing. The Canyon of Echoes, said, looking at the map. The final arena. The final hunt, Jin corrected. In the observation hall, the countdown appeared. 48 hours until the final battle. The 3 alien teams would face each other, and the humans, in one last confrontation. For the first time since the war games began, the aliens weren't sure if they wanted to win anymore. They just wanted it to be over. The Canyon of Echoes stretched 15 kilometers across the arena's center, a massive gorge carved with hundreds of smaller canyons, caves, and passages. For the final battle, all remaining teams would converge here. The rules were simple. Last team standing wins. The location was chosen because it offered equal advantages to all combat styles, or so the Academy thought. In the observation hall, every seat was filled. Word had spread throughout Terminus 7 about the impossible human performance. Even civilians had come to watch. The betting pools had reopened, and for the first time, some were placing bets on the humans. Commander stood at the main display. 3 teams remain besides the humans, he announced, and this will be a true test of combat capability. And the humans, someone called out. His expression was unreadable. We shall see. The teams deployed at dawn on day 14. They entered from the north, 50 warriors strong despite their losses. Axe led them personally, his pride wounded by the previous days. They moved in tight formation, weapons charged, armor gleaming. They came from the east, moving like a silver wave across the canyon rim. They'd lost members but remained fast and coordinated. Their leader had one goal: eliminate the humans and restore their honor. They deployed from the west, their drones already scanning the terrain. They'd upgraded their sensors specifically to detect human biosigns. They were confident technology would triumph. The humans entered from the south. From the dead zone everyone thought was useless. They came in pairs, separated by hundreds of meters, moving through passages no other species could navigate. Captain watched from a concealed position high on the canyon wall. All teams, final positions, he transmitted on the encrypted channel had created. North Ridge ready, Jin responded. East passages set, confirmed. South caves in position, Wu reported. The battle began with forces meeting in the canyon's center. It was spectacular. They charged with overwhelming force, their war cries echoing off the walls. They split into 3 groups, attacking from multiple angles with blinding speed. Energy weapons lit up the canyon floor. Explosions sent rock dust into the air. In the observation hall, cadets cheered. This was coalition warfare at its finest, honorable, powerful, impressive. Then the first scout disappeared. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. No sound, no warning, just gone. The leader called for a status report. No response from the scout. Another warrior vanished from the left flank, then another from the right. The remaining began to cluster together, their confidence shaking. Sensors show nothing, the team reported. Whatever is taking them, it's not registering on our equipment. Axe ordered his warriors into defensive formation. All units tighten ranks, watch all approaches. But the humans weren't approaching. They were already there, had been there before the battle even started. Jin had positioned his teams in the canyon walls, in crevices and shadows that cameras couldn't see and sensors couldn't penetrate. While the aliens fought each other in the open, the humans moved through spaces that shouldn't exist. A warrior on the perimeter suddenly slumped forward, stunned by a perfectly placed shot from a position 70 meters above him, and had found a cave opening that gave them a perfect angle. They fired once and disappeared back into the rock before anyone could locate them. "Contact above," a shouted. The warriors turned their weapons upward, firing at empty air. By the time they realized their mistake, 2 more of their number were down. They deployed their drones in a search pattern, but jammers were already active. The drones picked up signals from 6 different directions. Each signal looked like a human team. The forces split to investigate each one. All of them were decoys. In the observation hall, the mood had shifted from excitement to confusion. The cameras couldn't follow the action because there was no traditional action to follow. Just alien forces slowly, methodically being eliminated by an enemy they couldn't see. "This is impossible," an instructor muttered. "They have to be somewhere." Admiral Hen was watching his private screen intently. He'd switched to thermal overlay and motion tracking. He could just barely see the humans moving, quick shadows that appeared and disappeared between camera angles. They were using the canyon itself as a weapon, exploiting every blind spot, every angle the aliens weren't watching. The leader made a decision. "All units full speed retreat to the east rim. We regroup and—" She never finished, and Wu had predicted the retreat route. They'd placed themselves at the narrowest passage, the one every fleeing would have to cross. When the forces came running through at full speed, they ran straight into a trap. Wu had collapsed part of the passage ceiling, nothing dramatic, just enough to create a bottleneck. As they tried to navigate it, they were exposed. One by one, they were eliminated by shots that came from positions that should have been impossible to fire from. The team leader found herself alone in less than 2 minutes. She looked around wildly, trying to spot her enemies. "Show yourselves," she shouted. "Fight with honor." His voice came through the canyon speakers. "This is honor. We honor our mission. We honor survival. We honor victory." The leader was marked eliminated. They realized their danger too late. They'd been so focused on their sensors that they hadn't noticed their team being surrounded. The humans had moved through their sensor grid like water, using this own technology against them. Every time a warrior stopped to check a reading, they were eliminating themselves by staying still. The commander watched his team markers disappear from his display one by one. His superior technology meant nothing against an enemy that didn't care about technological superiority. In desperation, he tried to contact the For Alliance, but had already blocked that frequency. The last warrior was eliminated in his command post, never knowing that Myra had been hiding in the equipment storage behind him for 20 minutes, waiting for the perfect moment. Now only the remained. Axe had 30 warriors left, bunched together in a defensive formation in the canyon center. They stood back to back, weapons pointing in all directions. It was a perfect defense against conventional assault. But the humans weren't conventional. "We know you're out there," Axe broadcast. "Come and face us, we are ready." Silence answered him, terrible, complete silence. In that silence, the warriors began to understand something their species had never experienced: the fear of being prey. They were the strongest warriors in the coalition. They'd never been hunted before. Now they stood in an alien canyon, surrounded by enemies they couldn't see, waiting for an attack that could come from anywhere. The psychological pressure was crushing. One by one, warriors began to fall. A shot from above, a stun blast from a cave entrance. Each elimination was precise, calculated, and came from an unexpected angle. The humans were taking them apart with surgical precision. Axe's communications crackled. His voice came through. You told us we would be eliminated in 48 hours. You laughed at us. You called us weak. Another warrior fell, 20 left. We are weak, continued. Compared to you, we're smaller, slower, less powerful. But we learned something on Earth that you never learned on your safe worlds. Another shot, another elimination, 15 warriors left. We learned that the winner isn't the strongest. It's the one still standing when everyone else gives up. Axe tried to track the voice, but it came from everywhere and nowhere. The canyon's echoes made it impossible to locate. We learned that honor doesn't feed you when you're starving. Speed doesn't save you when you can't see the threat. Technology fails when someone smarter turns it against you. 10 warriors left. They were firing blindly now, panicking, breaking formation. We learned to be patient, to be invisible, to make our enemies fear the silence. 5 warriors left. Axe stood among them, his confidence completely shattered. And most importantly, his voice said, now from directly behind them, we learned that war isn't about fighting fair. It's about winning. The last 5 warriors spun around. Standing on a boulder 30 meters away were 8 human cadets. They weren't hiding anymore. They stood in plain sight, weapons lowered, watching. Axe raised his weapon, but his hands were shaking. He'd spent 2 weeks being hunted by these small, weak humans. 2 weeks of fear, confusion, and defeat. Now they stood before him, and he realized something terrifying. They'd been toying with his team. They could have eliminated the days ago. They'd chosen not to. They'd wanted to feel every moment of being outmatched. We surrender, Axe said quietly. His warriors looked at him in shock, but he knew. This battle was over the moment it began. The humans had won before the first shot was fired. The arena's announcement system activated. Human team victorious. War games concluded. The canyon of echoes fell silent. In that silence, every alien in the observation hall sat stunned, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. The weakest team, the one they'd all laughed at, had defeated every other species without losing a single member. Captain emerged from his observation position and walked down to join his cadets. They stood together, exhausted, battered, but undefeated. In the observation hall, Admiral Hen began to clap. It was a slow, deliberate sound in the silent room. Then one by one, other aliens joined. Not all of them, many were too shocked, but enough. The sound built into something the humans had never heard before in the academy: respect. The battlefield went silent because that's where humans were most dangerous. Now the galaxy was beginning to understand why. The observation hall remained silent for a full minute after the war games ended. 8 human cadets stood in the canyon of echoes, surrounded by defeated alien teams. The scoreboard displayed the final results: human team victory, 0 casualties, complete tactical success. Commander stared at the display as if it had malfunctioned. Around him, alien instructors whispered in disbelief. The species that couldn't complete basic training exercises had just defeated 12 elite teams using methods nobody had seen before. Admiral Hen stood and made his way to the central podium. His voice carried through the hall. All teams return to the academy. Analysis will begin in 2 hours. Mandatory attendance. The debriefing room was the largest in the academy. Every cadet, every instructor, and half the station's military observers crowded inside. The human team entered last, still in their combat gear, and the crowd parted for them. No one laughed now. No one made jokes. Alien cadets who'd mocked them 2 weeks ago now watched with careful, wary eyes. The humans took seats at the front. They were exhausted. 2 weeks of operating on minimal sleep, constant movement, and high stress had taken their toll. But they sat straight, dignified, meeting every alien gaze. Admiral Hen activated the main display. "We will review the war games in detail," he began. "Not because of irregularities, the humans broke no rules, but because every person in this room needs to understand what happened and why." The first footage showed the initial deployments. Day 1, Standard Beginning. All teams moved to establish positions based on their strengths. The humans disappeared. He paused the video on the empty Badlands. For 3 days, sensors detected nothing. No heat signatures, no movement. They simply vanished. An instructor stood. Impossible. Our sensors cover the entire arena. They had to be somewhere. They were in the canyon systems, Admiral Hen replied. In passages designed for maintenance drones, too small for most species, perfect for humans who are smaller and more flexible. He showed thermal imaging that barely caught human movement through impossible angles. While other teams fought for territory, humans were mapping the entire battlefield, learning patterns, identifying weaknesses. The footage continued, showing the mysterious attacks that had confused every team. Admiral Hen explained each one with clinical precision. The supply convoy that vanished, taken by an ambush in terrain marked as impassable. The patrols that never returned, led into dead zones by false sensor readings. The scouts who disappeared, picked off one by one during their rest cycles when humans were still active. This is guerrilla warfare, the Admiral said. A human concept. Most species in the coalition evolved on worlds where they were the dominant species from the beginning. Warfare for us is about demonstrating strength and superiority. We fight to show we are better warriors. He pulled up historical records from Earth. Humans evolved on a world that actively tried to kill them. Predators, diseases, environmental extremes. They were never the strongest species on their planet. They survived by being clever, adaptable, and relentless. When they began fighting each other, they brought those same principles. Don't fight fair, fight to win. Don't announce your attacks, strike from the shadows. Don't give your enemy a chance to use their strengths. The video showed the final battle in the Canyon of Echoes. Alien cadets watched themselves on screen, saw how they'd been systematically dismantled, saw how every conventional tactic had failed, saw how fear and confusion had been used as weapons. Axe stood, his posture stiff with shame and something else, reluctant respect. Admiral, permission to speak. Granted. The massive warrior looked at the human cadets. 2 weeks ago, I said humans didn't belong in the coalition military. I said they were weak and would fail. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I was wrong. Not about their physical strength. By our standards, they are weaker. But I measured them by our standards, and that was my failure. He turned to face directly. You fought like no enemy I've ever faced. You used tactics my people would call dishonorable. You attacked from the shadows. You never gave us a chance to fight back with our strength. He paused. And you won, completely. If this had been a real war, my entire force would be dead and you would have suffered no losses. That is humbling. Stood and bowed his head slightly. Commander Axe, there is honor in recognizing the truth. You are a skilled warrior. In a direct fight, you would defeat me easily, but war is rarely direct. My people learned that the hard way over thousands of years. The team leader spoke up next. How did you move so fast? Our species is built for speed, yet you were always ahead of us. Jin answered this one. We weren't faster, we were more efficient. You moved at top speed in straight lines. We moved slowly through paths you never considered. We weren't ahead of you, we were already in position before you started moving. A tactical officer looked troubled. Your sensor jamming and decoys. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. How did you defeat it? Smiled slightly. Because you built your technology assuming your enemies would fight like you do. You never encrypted communications because you assumed everyone followed honorable warfare codes. Your sensors were designed to detect direct assaults. Your drones looked for standard combat formations. She held up a small device. This is made from spare parts you considered worthless. It generates false signals your sensors can't distinguish from real ones because you never thought someone would try. Captain stood and addressed the room. The coalition has been at peace for 3 generations. You train for war, but for most of you, war is theoretical, an exercise, a way to demonstrate prowess. He looked around at the alien faces. For humanity, war is memory, recent memory. We stopped fighting each other only when we joined the coalition. Before that, we spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare, not honorable warfare, survival warfare. War where the goal isn't glory. It's making sure you and your people live to see tomorrow. Commander finally spoke. His voice was different from before, less arrogant, more thoughtful. I owe the human team an apology. I questioned their place in this academy. I suggested they were unfit for coalition military service. I was, he hesitated, profoundly wrong. Admiral Hen nodded. The war games were a test, but not the test you believed. Yes, we evaluate cadet performance. But this year, we were testing something else, whether humanity could offer the coalition something we lack. He activated a new display. Images of unknown ships appeared, wreckage from border incidents. For the past year, the coalition has faced a new threat on our frontier, an enemy that doesn't follow our warfare conventions. They attack without warning. They use deception and ambush. They strike supply lines and communications, never giving us a direct battle. The Admiral's expression was grave. We've lost 17 encounters because our forces don't know how to fight this enemy. Our doctrine, our honor codes, our traditional tactics, none of it works. The room went silent as understanding dawned. We need warriors who think differently, Admiral Hen continued. We need soldiers who can fight an enemy that won't fight fair. We need humanity. He looked at the 8 human cadets. Captain, your team is hereby promoted to Special Tactics Division. Your mission, train coalition forces in unconventional warfare. Teach us to fight like humans. The room erupted in conversation. Some aliens looked relieved, others looked disturbed. The concept of unfair warfare violated everything they'd been taught. But Axe stood again. Admiral, requesting transfer to Special Tactics Division. If we face an enemy like the humans described, I want to learn these methods. One by one, other alien cadets stood. The team leader, several officers, even some who had mocked the humans weeks before. They understood now. Adaptation was survival, and humanity had mastered adaptation. Over the following months, the Academy transformed. Captain and his team established the first joint species unconventional warfare unit. They taught aliens to think like humans, to use terrain creatively, to value intelligence over strength, to strike from unexpected angles. It wasn't easy. Alien cadets struggled with concepts that violated their instincts. The idea of hiding instead of facing enemies directly. The concept of psychological warfare. The practice of making enemies afraid rather than simply defeating them. But they learned. They had to. The border conflicts were getting worse. 6 months after the war games, the first mixed species unit deployed to the frontier. 12 soldiers. 4 humans, 3, 2, 2, and 1. They were sent to investigate why a coalition outpost had gone silent. They found an enemy ambush waiting. Traditional tactics would have resulted in disaster. Instead, the unit used human methods. They scouted first. They identified enemy positions without being detected. They set their own ambush. The enemy never knew what hit them. For the first time, the coalition captured enemy soldiers alive and secured enemy technology intact. The information gained from that single operation changed the entire frontier strategy. More victories followed. Each time, they used tactics the coalition would have called dishonorable a year before. Each time, they won with minimal casualties. The enemy, accustomed to coalition predictability, couldn't adapt to forces that fought like humans. Back at Terminus 7, the Academy had changed. Human instructors now taught classes on Earth military history. Guerrilla tactics were part of standard curriculum. The concept of honorable warfare was still valued, but it was no longer the only option taught. In the Special Tactics Training Hall stood before a class of alien cadets. Among them was Axe, the warrior who'd once mocked humans, now learning human methods with dedicated focus. Lesson 1 said, Forget everything you think you know about fair fights. War isn't about being fair. It's about making sure your people survive. Sometimes that means hiding. Sometimes that means running. Sometimes that means making your enemy so afraid they surrender without fighting." He smiled. "My ancestors learned this fighting wars with sticks and stones. Today, we use it to defend the galaxy. The principle never changes." Axe raised a hand. Question: what if the enemy learns our methods? What if they adapt? "Then we adapt again," replied. "That's what humans do best. We change, we evolve, we find new ways, because on Earth the species that couldn't adapt went extinct. We're still here." In Admiral Hen's office, Captain reviewed reports from the frontier. Coalition forces were winning now. Not easily, the enemy was learning, but winning. Human tactics had given them the edge they needed. "You've changed the coalition military forever," the Admiral said. Shook his head. "We just showed you what was already possible. Every species here has strengths we don't have, but you'd forgotten how to use them creatively. Sometimes the voice in the room has the best ideas because they don't know what's supposed to be impossible." "Will humanity continue to provide instructors?" "As long as you need us," replied. "We're part of the coalition now. Your fights are our fights. Your survival is our survival." The Admiral's expression was thoughtful. "When you arrived at this academy, many questioned whether humans belonged in the coalition. Now I wonder if the coalition would survive without you." That evening, the 8 original human cadets gathered in the observation lounge, the same place where aliens had once laughed at them. They looked out at the stars, at the massive fleet now patrolling the frontier, using tactics they'd helped develop. "Think they'll remember?" Wu asked. "In 100 years, will they remember it was humans who changed how they fight?" "Maybe," said. "Maybe not, doesn't matter." "What matters?" asked. Jin smiled. "We survived, we adapted, we won. That's the human story, that's what we do." Below them, in the training halls, alien cadets practiced moving in silence, learned to value patience over strength, discovered that sometimes the best weapon was the one your enemy never saw coming. The galaxy was learning to fight like humans. And somewhere on the frontier, the enemy was learning to fear the silence. Because when the battlefield went silent, that meant humans were there, and nothing would ever be the same.